So here's the bowl that I made earlier that I've let set up quite a bit. It's not nearly as flimsy. This would be a great stage to take a paddle to it if you wanted to, square off or give it another kind of shape or form. You'll remember that when I was at the very end, I was kind of trying to make the form turn in a bit. And in doing so, I do have some cracks that I will need to use my serrated rib on. And then again, my smooth rib. It's at this point that you should feel a little bit more comfortable with using a sponge and a little bit of water. I have a really sharp edge that I cut with my X-Acto knife, as you'll recall. So I want to take a little bit of time and address that. The clay responds slightly differently at this stage. I'm able to hold it up on its edge and not be as concerned that I'm going to lose its form. Sorry, I was working out of the frame there for a minute. And I have this perfect little spot for a foot ring. So I would take some clay, roll a coil, scratch and attach at this point because, the clay is stiffened quite a bit. So, pardon the noise. I'm just digging in my clay bag here. Making that foot ring off to the side. You can do this a couple of ways. You can roll a coil. You could take a slab, depending on the height of the foot that you want. You have all kinds of options at this point. So I made a slab and then I kind of flattened it out. I need to work a little bit more, make sure that I get the length that I need. Again, you're going to want to make sure that you are paying attention to consistency. So right now I've got kind of a slab foot that is not very consistent in its width here. So I'm going to want to trim that down. I'm just eyeballing it, but feel free to use a ruler, straight edge, any kind of measuring tool to ensure that you are trimming a straight line onto your piece. Rule of thumb with bowls is that your foot ring should be approximately a half of the overall diameter, the largest diameter of the bowl. And when you're trimming anything, any kind of coil or slab that is to come together, you want to cut it at a bevel. So you want to overlap it and then you want to cut it at a bevel so that when it joins, it doesn't just overlap and then you have a double thickness, and it doesn't just abut, it will create a seam that overlaps and allows you to move clay from both sides into the other. Okay, so I have used this interior here to guide the shape of my foot ring. And then again, to scratch and attach, so I'm tracing along the outside. I'm doing it with my X-Acto knife. You can do this with your pin tool. I am scratching and I will attach. I also want to deal with this edge here. So you have a couple of tools at your disposal. The best one to get a flatter top is one that I cannot find right now. Is a rasp. So we have them in the hand building room. And I cannot seem to find mine right now, but it's a tool that, it's kind of like a cheese grater, and it would allow you to trim some of the top parts off here. You can do it with your metal rib also. Again, you can see how I'm just taking a little bit off. I'm turning the bowl. Okay, I just wanted to get the top edge a little bit more level. I do have these little flakes now of clay. I'm not going to touch those. The inclination is to go in with your sponge and kind of knock them out. Sometimes that works and sometimes that works against you. Here is my first use of sponge on this bowl. Okay, and it was after I leveled the top. So I didn't join the foot because I want to make sure that I can put it down. My foot is still wet, so I could, wait until it's completely the same consistency as my bowl. I could also just scratch and attach it wetter, and then wrap the bowl entirely in plastic so that the bowl, which is drier than the foot, will begin to absorb the moisture from the foot. Once they are the same consistency, I can unwrap the bowl and allow it to dry. Note how I'm using my sponge, right? I have the sponge kind of tucked around the rim, and I don't have a finger on the rim. My fingers are on either side of the rim, which allows the sponge to drag and pull in between. And you can get a really nice finished edge and compressed edge this way. At this point, I would go ahead and scratch and attach the foot on. You have scratchers in your toolkits. Those are the little yellow tools that have basically needles attached to them. Anytime you're scratching and attaching, you have to scratch both surfaces. I'm going to pinch that together a little bit more. And then as I'm scratching, I go ahead and utilize that opportunity to move clay from one side of that seam into the other. I'm going to put my slip on. Most of you are doing this with your paintbrush. It never hurts to go back once you put slip on you only have to put slip on one side. It never hurts to go back and scratch again. So I want to put that on. At the moment, frankly, I'm not terribly confident that it is level, but again, I have tools that I can use that will help me with that process. Right now, I'm just focused on making sure that I get a foot on and that it is attached. This is, like I said, this is a taller foot. You have so many options when you go to create your feet. It can be as simple as a coil, and it can be as elaborate as a slab with sections cut out, smoothed into the form. I will probably smooth this in when it is more consistent, when they're closer together, because right now I can't really pull. I can't pull much from here. When it's drier, I'll use a wooden knife to pull that clay down. And you can do that now, but it just leaves a different kind of tool mark.